For the first part of science today, I'm going to read the book that is on Get Epic. It's called A Real Live Pet by Lydia Lukidis. It is illustrated by Craig Cameron. And this week we're learning about living and non-living. So that is what this book is about today. And it is called A Real Live Pet. Only 2 more sleeps until my birthday, sang JJ. He hopped around the kitchen. JJ had been begging his parents for a pet. So what are you going to get me? He asked them. A tarantula? A lizard? Or maybe a... Now, Jelani, Mom said with a serious face, I told you pets are too much work. JJ sighed and plopped into a chair. Cheer up, Mom went on. We're going to the nature center tomorrow. They have plenty of animals there for you to look at. I have an idea, JJ whispered to his sister, Nala, after breakfast. I'm going to find a pet myself. He grabbed his net and bucket. Nala's eyes widened. Me too, she squealed. I want a pet too. Uh-oh, they're going against their mother and father's wishes. They told their parents they were going to play near the pond by their house. When they got there, JJ looked around. It was quiet until... Ribbit, ribbit. Aha, he said. Listen to that. JJ followed the croaking sound. Then he spotted the most awesome frog. It was big and green and spotty. He got his net ready and threw it over the frog. Victory! That means he caught it. He's a whopper, Nala said. Thanks, JJ said, beaming. He was proud. Then he looked at his sister. What are you doing? Nala was hugging a huge oak tree. This is my pet, she said. JJ laughed. A tree? It can't fit in our house. Nala frowned for a moment. Then she picked up a branch. My pet, she said proudly. She cradled the branch in her arms like a baby. JJ shook his head, but he didn't have time to argue. He wanted to rush home to show off his frog. You'll never guess what I caught, he said as he ran inside. A real live frog. Dad smiled, but Mom didn't look too pleased. Nala also showed off her branch. A branch can't be a pet, JJ said. It's not even alive. It doesn't have a face. Well, Dad said, living things don't always have faces. Look at trees or flowers. JJ sighed. Dad loved science, and he really loved talking about science. But that branch was just lying dead on the ground, JJ pointed out. Ah, that's where the science gets tricky, said Dad. The branch may be dead now, but it's still a living thing, and that's different from a non-living thing. So down here, this box says a living thing is either alive or was once alive, like a dog, a seed, or a flower, even if the flower has been cut. And we actually talked about that when we did science yesterday, and I read living and non-living, how if you find something that was living at one time, it will always be considered a living thing. JJ scrunched up his face. So what's a non-living thing? Well, it's something that is not alive and it never was, Dad said. Like a rock or a car. Get it? I guess so, JJ said slowly, but I still don't think a branch can be a pet. I think a branch is a very creative pet, Mom said. Nala, you can keep it. Then Mom turned to JJ. As for the frog, I'm afraid you'll have to return it to the pond. Please, JJ begged. Can't I keep him for just one day? I could take him to the nature center tomorrow. They could teach me about frogs and living things and everything. Right, Dad? So here we have the non-living things, the rock, the car. Now, even though the branch is dead, it's not connected to the tree anymore. It still is considered a living thing, and we know the frog is a living thing. This box down here says a non-living thing is not alive and never was, like something made out of stone or plastic. Dad grinned, but he said, "Well, it's up to your mother." Even Nala put on her best pleading look. She really wanted her brother to keep the frog. Mom sighed. "Fine, one day, but find somewhere to keep him so he doesn't hop all over the house." Sweet! JJ found a plastic container and poked holes through the lid. Why do you think he did that? So that the frog can breathe. Nala put a handful of leaves to make him cozy, she said. JJ gently placed the frog in the container. Nala giggled. "He sure likes to hop around." "That's it," JJ said. "I'll call him Hopper." And this box down here says people, animals, insects, trees, grass, and other plants are all examples of living things. The next day they went to the nature center. JJ's favorite room had lots of reptiles in glass tanks. He spotted a snake, a big snake. "That snake is huge," he said to Nala. "Sure is," a friendly voice behind them said. It was a nature center guide. "My name's Darlene," she told them. "And there's a python. Pythons are some of the longest snakes in the world." "That's cool," said JJ, "but I have an even cooler animal." He opened his container to show off Hopper. "Gadzooks," Darlene said. "That sure is neat. That's a Rana Katsabiana, also known as a good old American bullfrog." "I have a pet too," Nala said. She held out her branch. "This is Sparky." JJ rolled his eyes. "I still say a branch isn't a real pet." Darlene laughed. "Well, why not?" "Pets should be alive," JJ said. "And I'm not talking about living things. I mean, a pet should, move." "Actually, plenty of living things don't move much, but they're still alive. Like mushrooms," said Darlene. "And some things move around, but they're not alive at all. Like water. Weird, huh?" "For sure," JJ nodded. This box says some non-living things move but are not alive, like fire and water. "Now get this," Darlene went on. "All living things eat, breathe, reproduce, grow, move, and give off waste. That means they poop." JJ laughed. "Hopper definitely does that." Nala frowned. "Sparky definitely doesn't." "Well, let me explain," Darlene told her. "Animals get rid of waste in their bodies by pooping. Plants get rid of waste by giving off gases. It's just a different way of doing the same thing." Nala looked hopeful. "So my branch can be a pet?" Darlene smiled. "Almost anything can be a pet. When I was your age, I had a pet named Hubert." "What kind of animal was Hubert?" JJ asked. Darlene burst out laughing. "He was a pet rock." Non-living things come in 3 groups: solids, liquids, and gases. Water is a liquid. It is not alive. Oxygen is a gas. It is not alive. A rock is a solid, and it is not alive. Nala loved the idea of a pet rock. She said she wanted one too. But JJ still thought Hopper was cooler. He looked down to admire the frog, but the lid of the container was open. "Code red!" he shrieked. "Hopper is gone!" JJ ran around in a panic. He looked in the animal displays. He checked the plants. He searched all the tanks. Nala and Darlene pitched in too, but Hopper was nowhere to be seen. JJ slumped down on the bench. He knew Hopper wasn't really his pet, but what if he was gone forever? Ribbit, ribbit. Something slimy jumped right onto JJ's foot. Hopper, you came back! JJ picked up the frog and held it gently. His birthday wasn't until tomorrow, but he made a wish anyway. He wished to never lose Hopper again. When they got home later, JJ grabbed his net and flashlight. Time for dinner, Hopper. He trapped a few moths, just like Darlene had taught him. Then he fed them to Hopper. JJ, Nala said, do you still want a new pet for your birthday? I did want a tarantula, JJ said, but now, he sniffled quietly. He knew he would have to say goodbye to Hopper soon. Mom came to the back door. Why don't you keep that frog for one more night, JJ? She said. After all, it's your birthday tomorrow. JJ smiled. Thanks, Mom. The next morning, JJ's family was waiting for him downstairs. A big present sat on the table. JJ ripped off the paper. It was a glass tank, but there was no pet inside it. JJ was confused. Mom beamed. She was proud. It's a proper home for Hopper, she said. Dad and I saw how well you took care of him. You mean I can keep him? Asked JJ. His parents nodded. Thank you, thank you, thank you, JJ said. He pranced around the kitchen. Then he placed his pet frog in its new home. Hopper hopped around happily. Nala also had a gift for her brother. She handed him a little rock. She had painted it green, and there were googly eyes on it. It's a pet rock for Hopper, she said. Her name is Sparky Jr. JJ gave Nala a big hug. Thanks, Nala, he said. I'm sorry I made fun of your branch. And you know what? I'm pretty sure that between Hopper and Sparky, you and I have the greatest pets in the world. All right, so this was a fun book. It was all about living and non-living things, and it talked about also how once, if something was once considered a living thing, it is always considered a living thing. So do you guys have any pets at home, living or non-living? Do you have a pet rock or a pet stick? I don't have any pets at my house, but I did when I was little. That's something for you guys to think about. All right, when you guys study living and non-living, if you think of any fun ideas or think of anything around your house that could be living and non-living, feel free to let me know. I'd love to hear what you're doing with it. All right, guys, see you later. Bye.